Hello, welcome back. Tom Maguire. I just want to do a review on a book that I've really enjoyed just recently. It's one that I didn't expect to enjoy anything like as much as I did. It's got to be well up there in my probably top 10 favourite of all time, I would say. So although it's a book that's probably been reviewed 100 times before, it's a classic, it's old, I wanted to share my view of it with you because I think it's definitely one that's worth recommending, and I'd like other people to appreciate and enjoy it as well. It's this one, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by the fantastic Jules Verne. It's the first Jules Verne book I've ever read. It's one that's been on my list for a little while. It's obviously very famous, very classic, and as I've said before, I am trying to work my way through the classics. I'm reading other stuff as well. I'm reading a lot of modern stuff as well. I'm still interested in personal development as well. But I really want to get to grips with the classics. I find something really kind of enthralling and fascinating about those type of books. The time they were written in, the language, the prose, the poetry, I just find it absolutely fantastic. So I'm really enjoying it. I often find once I've read a really good classic that other stuff is really difficult to get on with, simply because it's a bit too simple and kind of basic and I suppose modern in some ways. I really enjoy the different language and the different approach that they took back in the old days. It's one of these lovely looking penguin classic versions, which I've got a few versions of. I've got Don Quixote in a similar style. I've got Hard Times by Dickens. I've got 1984, George Orwell, and a few others as well. I think I've got Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky as well. In a similar format, and I think that not only they look lovely on the shelf, but the actual I find the kind of text as well, the right kind of size, particularly in this one, although they differ. Some beautiful illustrations in this one as well. It's just so good. And I suppose what I want to say about this book is that for a classic, for any kind of book actually, it's really quite easy to read. That isn't sort of a bad thing. Don't let that put you off. It's not like it's simplistic. It's just the language isn't unnecessarily complicated. The chapters aren't ridiculously long, which kind of, for me, it might sound a bit silly, but gives me a sense that I'm getting on through the book a bit more quickly. I don't feel as though I'm taking forever to get through the book, which is kind of, for me, is a good thing. And I think other people kind of appreciate that as well sometimes. Each chapter seemed to have something going on. I didn't get bored at all. I've heard people say that there's kind of a bit too much talk about the details of what goes on under the sea and perhaps the mechanics of his craft and things like that. But I didn't really get that, actually. I kind of found that those bits kind of passed fairly quickly. It's not like Moby Dick, where you have kind of descriptions of tying knots and whaling and that sort of thing, which to be fair works in Moby Dick, because Moby Dick's a really long book. It's got fantastic language, poetry, and for me that didn't put me off that book either, but it certainly isn't the case with this one. This one just seems to be pacey, it's easy to get through. I devoured it in literally just a few days. You could take your time with it as well. This particular version is 478 pages, and like I say, the text isn't too small. It's a sort of average size. It's quite decent. It's just really atmospheric, and I just think the main character, Captain Nemo, is just mysterious, magical. Is he a godlike character? Is he a devil-like character? And I love that sort of thing. He's just fantastic, kind of superhuman. And there aren't too many characters either to get kind of lost with as well. There's just a few key characters there to take you through the journey, and it's just fascinating. And really just this idea of being beneath the sea and exploring the oceans and be able to go from one place to another quite easily and just coming across the different things that you come across, for me, was just absolutely gripping and magical. There's not really much more I can say about it without kind of spoiling the story, but then I suppose being a classic, lots of people know the story anyway. But it's just brilliant. I'm going to open a page randomly and just read a small bit just to see what happens. Hopefully this will work. It was an indescribable sight. Oh, if only we'd been able to communicate what we felt. Why had we to be imprisoned inside masks of metal and glass? Why were we prevented from speaking to each other? Ah, if only we were able to live like the fish that swam in the water, or rather more like the amphibians, which are able to live long periods to wander at will through the dual domains of land and sea. Then we saw that Captain Nemo had halted. My two companions and I came to a standstill, and as I turned, I saw that his men had formed a semicircle around him. Looking more closely, I noticed that 4 of them were carrying something oblong in shape on their shoulders. We'd reached the middle of a large clearing, ringed by the tall coral branches of the underwater forest. Our lamps cast something close to twilight over the area and lengthened the shadows on the seabed considerably. On the fringes of the clearing, the gloom became complete again, broken only by occasional flashes where the light reflected off the sharp, bony surfaces of the coral. It's just superb. Can't recommend it highly enough. If you're into classics, to be honest, whatever you're into, it doesn't feel that old. Really easy to get through, really enjoyable, gripping. Can't recommend it enough. One of my favourites. Speak soon. Please keep liking and subscribing. See you later.